Recording in progress.
All right, welcome to week 8 still life mix along. So we've done the portrait and the landscape so far, and tonight we're going to do the still life. And what I hope you start to see that these base colors, especially at the very darks, there's not a lot of ways to mix them. And I got in a conversation with somebody that was going, wait a minute, why is brown and purple started the same way? And if we kind of think about it, when we go to our very darkest dark, the darkest dark we can ever go to, what color is it? Well, there's two ways to say it. It's none of them, or it's all of them, right? It kind of loses all color as it gets so dark. And the same is true for the other end of the color space. The light and the white, what is the white? Again, you can think of it as the total absence of color or every color, which is no color. So naturally, as you're going from one end to the other, you go out into these colors and then they kind of come back together in black and in white. Does that make sense? Okay, so if we took yellow to the very lightest it could go, where does it go? It goes away. It goes away to white. If we take blue to the very lightest it can go, where does it go? It goes away. It goes to white. The same was true if we took red to the very darkest it could go, where does it go? It goes away. It goes to black, right? What about green? Same thing, it goes away, it goes to black. So that's almost a more appropriate way of thinking of color, rather than thinking there's a green land where all the light greens and the dark greens. That green land is kind of a curve out from neutral, right? Starting with white in neutral, and then curving out to green, and then when it gets really, really dark, it's going to curve all the way back to black. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So as we mix today, I just wanted to put that image in your head. So maybe your your understanding of color, or your understanding of how we use it in oil paint, will change just a little bit. Okay? Because ultimately, what are we going to use this color for? Making patterns. Now, if you're making patterns, how many different pieces do you want? And if any of you guys have ever done anything with patterns at all, this is going to be a very easy decision for you. Are you going to pick a project that has 5 pieces that you can make patterns out of? Or are you going to pick a project that got 137 pieces that you can make patterns out of? You'll never get to a pattern with 137 pieces. You're going to have 137 different pieces. But with the 3 or the 5, you can set up a pattern. Think about color that same way. That simpler is a little better. Let's pick which ones we're going to use and not do 97 around that. We'll bend it a little bit this way. We'll bend it a little bit that way. We'll lighten it. We'll darken it. That's a better way to think about color than all different colors. Okay, and then you may have a couple. Maybe there's a gray that's one color, and a color that's another color or another hue. Okay, I'm going to not go too deep into that, but I think we painted the picture there. So let us jump right to our palette. And tonight we will be talking, oh, this is a big one for this little bit thing. We're going to be talking about, can you even hear me? We're going to be talking about 3 particular areas. One's the darks. We're going to have a dark purple that's going to start in here. We're going to call this, which isn't very obvious yet, dark green over here. And that's going to be dark brown. Now, in the end, will the viewer actually be able to see the different colors? Purple, green, and brown. Probably not. Probably not. But the value will hold all those colors together and will make your patterning more interesting. For instance, you can probably see, you see how clear this is, and then this is close, and then this is a little bit weaker. If I get that value to this and hold that value there, and then get my leaves at that same value, not let that value wiggle woggle, this pattern will be stronger. Okay? So a painting is really a combination of a pattern of strong, stable notes put on some gradating color, some gradating notes. So you want to think about stability and gradation. Okay? All right, let's mix some things up. Now, when you're mixing, you don't necessarily have to think about that, but as you're painting and as we develop these paintings, that idea of pattern is very important. So really our darkest dark in there, or the thing that's going to set that dark up, is that vase. And I'm going to call that purple. And again, a purple in dark is warm. So I'm going to paint that purple. Now, if you did it with paints, it's not a big deal, right? Do it and see. But if I do it with black and just a touch of red, that's going to be a really dark warm. And we can think about this as our black. And the thing with our black, or our darkest dark, is we don't want it to be cool. We want it to read warm. And that's why I add the cad red there. Now I don't add it to the point that it really lightens it. But I can feel that it's warm rather than cool. Okay, and you'll develop a feeling for that as you go. Now, to show you the difference between the warm and cool, even if I don't go Payne's gray, but if I just went black, and instead of red, did just the smallest touch of white, maybe a little more than that, not going to be strong enough. See if you guys can see. Not quite yet. Let me do a little bit more. It's not showing up on camera yet, so I want to get it to where you guys can see it. Can you guys see that now? So that will read like a light, and that will read as a shadow. So why am I starting some of these colors with like black and red? For the dark warmth, and so that we can have maximum distance when we need to cool it off for the light. Okay, so in our shadows here, we want to keep out all the light and keep them as warm as possible. And also that separates my purple. If I want to separate it in color, I can go Payne's gray, and now my cad yellow or my cad orange, my cad yellow deep or my cad orange. And now I got enough cad deep in there that that value changed. You see, just a smidge. Just a smidge. So I can add some more of that dark in there if I want, and play, and I can have tremendous control over the exact value. Now that's going to match with that, right? So my pattern will be much stronger if I make them the same rather than if I make this a little bit different. Okay? Our natural inclination is to make these different, but the pattern will be stronger if they're the same. Now, I've done this demonstration a few times, but for the orange, again, our burnt umber is quite a bit lighter than those other two. It's a good value or two. So that ends up actually being the exact same mixture as my purple. And next, when I got a little more red in, I could darken that. But do you see those three colors now read the same? That's what I've been calling a number 4 value. Why is it important for those to stay the same? For the design of the canvas. If they're the same, your design is stronger. If you've got a number 4 dark purple, that's a different value than your number 4 dark green, that's a different value than your number 4 dark brown, you basically have 3 different values, not 1 different value. And that makes for a weaker painting. Now, maybe these are one of your other values, that's a different story. Okay, so enough explaining, let's get to mixing, huh? So we have our darks, which is our foundation, right? And why did I go into such detail about this? Well, on the still life, that dark pattern is a huge part of the composition, right? The dark of those dark leaves, with the dark of the centers, with the vase. That pattern holds it together. Then what does that pattern happen on top of? It happens on top of brown. Right? All that brown background. So, think dark, and then how can we gray and lighten that up? Well, we can simply do it with yellow ochre. And then if we're thinking gradient, since we're thinking background, right? What are we going to do next? We'll probably add a little more yellow ochre, right? So we could get a couple of steps out of our yellow ochre alone. Does that make sense? If we're trying to do a gradation. If we want a big pop, we're not going to want all these little bitty steps. And then from here, where would you go? Now, yeah, we could add more yellow ochre, but we're probably going to add maybe a bit of white. And what I'd like you to see on this pattern is we can walk out of a dark shadow without immediately going to white. And what I call this is going from our dark, going through a little richness before you start graying it out with your white. Right? So the burnt umber by itself will be rich. Then when you add just burnt umber with a little bit of yellow ochre, that gives a richer color. Then as you start adding white, it starts graying off. So again, what it does is it lets you have a couple of steps for gradation. Okay? And I'm going to see this kind of thing in the background. You're probably not going to go this light in the background. We might have a little bit of this on the tabletop and light something that value. But other than that, probably not. Now, the sunflowers. Right? What all you guys paid all this big money for is those sunflowers. Well, we want them to sing off of this. So, did you notice, I know it's late, but take note of this point for the sunflower, okay? The background, I've, to this point, excluded a lot of the bright colors, didn't I? Now, we can use the cadmiums to add some transparency, but what I'm doing is I'm separating the background from our color. So, for our sunflower in shadow, I'm talking about the petals, not the center. Just so it's not too bright, I'm going to take some burnt umber with my cad red. Now what I want you to notice is now as I sit this over here against this background, you see it's a similar value. But look how much more attractive it is. So your eye, if it had the choice to go here or here, guess where it's going to go? Right there. So that's the sunflower petals in shadow. And then from there, it's going to go to sunflowers in light. And again, just so that we don't go too bonkers here, I'm going to start with a little yellow ochre. Let me go with my cad yellow deep or my cad orange. And just mix those two up a little bit. Now, if I just did cad orange and white, it's going to be very garish. But look what I'm going to do instead. Instead, I'm just going to add actually a touch of my dark green and maybe a little bit of my purple there. Just a smidge. Now, before you guys freak out saying it got too green, it got too green, it got too green, what's missing from that color? And by the way, does that look too green to you? No, 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 no. It was going green, green. Well, it's in light, so it has to have white. So as I add white, add some more white. Look how bright that is. Right? Maybe brighter than we need. But the beauty is that's pretty grayed off. And how is that going to come in handy? Well, if we want to add a little bit of color, we can go that direction. We can go more this direction. And even for kind of the lightest of the petals, we might go that direction. So almost like a face, do you see how we go from darker, richer to a little lighter grayer, going red, orange, yellow? Okay, so when I start on these initial ones, I want to gray off that orange a little bit and maybe even keep it slightly darker than I did. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. And let's see, did I forget anything? What do we have? We've got background. What do we got here? We've got background over here. Background. We've got darks over here. It's late. It's late. But these are darks. Then we're moving to background and the petals in shadow. You remember the petals in shadow aren't a dark, they're a number 3. But what did we do here to make it a special number 3? We really upped the chroma, right? And so that red, it's a lot redder and not so gray. Okay? Then in a background, it can gray off a little bit as it lightens up. And then for our sunflower in light, we want to keep it a little darker, richer, and grayer so that we have a chance later to come back with these colors. You don't need to mix these colors up right now. I mixed them up to show you that you'll be a little better off having a little darker, richer color than a real bright color. Right? Do you get, look how that even looks better than that first one we started. Look at that. Yummy, yummy. If I didn't know this was poisonous, I'd get down there and lick that right now. That is delicious looking. That is delicious. Okay, now there's one last thing I'd like to talk about. Our tabletop. Oops. I'm not going to learn anything looking at that thing. Our tabletop is going to start with this kind of brown, quiet, vague background. Just like our purple the black and the red started both our purple and our, right? Our tabletop is going to start with the same from the background. Right? And as it comes out of the shadows, what's going to happen is it's going to have a little bit more yellow, but not a lot. But we need to really gray this down. So think of kind of a very grayed down yellow, but then what's going to happen is we're going to use our white to bring that value up. So can you guys, I mean, literally right to your face, do you hear what I just told you? Right to your face, to your computer face anyway. Those are both yellows, both oranges. This is a very gray orange that's lighter. A very, very light gray. And this is a darker orange that's more colorful. Can you guys see that? So that's one way you can balance these, is the color and the light, is you can separate them. Then if I want my table to get stronger, what do? Is I can lighten it up. Right? Because I don't want to add brighter color to it, because then I'm going to confuse it to this. Does that make sense? And then if I need to bring those closer together, what will I do? Well, you simply rub them together. Then what am I going to do if I need to separate this one out a little bit? I'm going a little overboard here, but this is a preview of what's to come. Well, is there any way I can make part of this lighter, brighter? Why, yes. Yes, there is. Okay, but for right now, all we're going to do is set up a colorful sunflower that has some punch with a tabletop in light, you know, that front corner with a statue sitting, with a little bit of punch of itself. But this is going to be a gray light, and this is going to be a slightly darker color. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. And does that wrap it? I think that wraps it up. The only thing you might be missing is that statue in light is what? It's a light purple. Probably a number 2 purple. So what you're going to do is a purple in the light. We can take the Payne's gray, and we can take our white. Not going to need very much Payne's gray at all. And I got a little yellow in there anyway. Right? And that looks purple, and if you need it a little warmer, stick the smallest little smidge of your Cad Red in there. Okay, and then you can get your little purple guy in light, and maybe this is highlight and your purple guy in light is going to be more down here. Oops. Look at that glare. There we go. How's that look? Does that look better? All right. I think we are all good and cashed in tonight. So a quick review. We see our darks across the board. Our browns are going to be the prevalent in our background. A little grayer. We're going to share a value with our petals in shadow and let those get more colorful, as in redder. Then as we jump into the light of our sunflowers, we want a little dark, rich, kind of gray orange. So we have room to come up. And then we showed you how to get the lighter tabletop with a gray, warm, compared to a colorful, a gray warm. And then our highlight's going to be that purple. Shakti Ellie, you got any questions about anything?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, will this one be on for the this color video be on for the remainder of the week?
Yeah, so everything that we've done on video is still in the school if you go over the week and extend it. So this will be under week 8 mix along. Okay? And Sydney's been pretty good. I don't know if she'll have it up tonight. They're having a girls' night over at Grandma's house. But in the next day or so, the link will be in the school. I imagine she's going to have it on tonight, but I want to give her a little grace. So it'll say week 8, still life mix along. And I think she's been putting that at the top of your week 8 still life stuff, at the top of the portrait. So you might have to look, but it'll be in there. And that will be on through the end of the course. And of course, I don't know how long, but you guys will have access to this for a little while.
Awesome.
Okay? Anything else from you guys?
No?
Okay, beautiful. Okay, Claudia, you look like you're nice and comfy and ready for bed, and I got a no for you. So, I guess I'll show my face. I love you guys. Have a nice night. I'll see you guys on Friday feedback, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, thank you. Bless you.
All right. Good night, everybody. Love you guys.
Love you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.